Hi, this is Remembering the Past, the show where we talk about people who died recently who've had a profound effect on our history, our society, or our culture. We're going to begin with an athlete today and then move on to a couple of actors, and we'll start out with Yale Lary, who died recently at the age of 86, one of the greatest players in Detroit Lions history. In the 1950s, the two dominant teams in football were the Cleveland Browns and the Detroit Lions. They played 4 times in 6 years for the NFL championship. Lions were led by their legendary quarterback Bobby Lane, but Yale Lary was one of their stalwarts on defense, one of the great safeties in NFL history, and one of the great punters in NFL history. He was actually one of the first real special teams men, both punting and returning punts. He's an NFL Hall of Famer, and if you go back before 1960, the two names you mention as great punters were him and Sammy Baugh. As I said, he's a legend in Detroit, and here's NFL Films on Yale Lary's career.
Some sad news to pass along from the world of the NFL. Hall of Fame safety Yale Lary died early this morning. Pro Football Hall of Fame president and CEO David Baker releasing the following statement saying, in part, quote, Yale was an American hero. He was defined by his heart and character that made him one of the game's greatest players. Lary was a fixture in the Lions' defensive backfield for 11 years, but as NFL Films tells us, he was also a versatile player.
Yale Lary was one of the most versatile performers ever to play in the National Football League. 3 times he won the punting title, and he owns one of the highest career punting averages in NFL history. In 1960, opponents averaged less than 1 yard per return on his 64 punts. Lary's athletic ability made him a threat to run at any time from punt formation, averaging over 15 yards every time he took off.
Yale Lary, the 1963 NFL punting champion, fakes the kick in the first quarter and scampers for a Lion first down.
Larry was equally adept on the other end of the kick, returning 3 punts for touchdowns during his career. Lary was also a standout defensive back on the Lions' great defensive teams of the 50s. He was a 5-time All-Pro and played in 9 Pro Bowls. Lary played the position that is now known as free safety. Relatively small at 5 feet 11 and 185 pounds, Yale was a tough tackler, and he was as smart as they came, never out of position, always around the ball. During his 11-year career, Lary intercepted 50 passes, and when he retired after the 1964 season, he ranked 5th all-time in career interceptions. During the 1950s, Lary played on 3 championship teams in Detroit, one of a cast of characters that made the Lions one of the most glamorous and successful teams of the decade.
It was a terrific team to watch because of not only the players, but you had a sense of the characters on the team as well. Lane and Walker and Sill and Yale Lary and all.
They had a lot of good players at the time, and the guys were larger than life. They were heroes. I remember thinking that this guy in front of me is Bobby Lane, and that guy over there is Doak Walker. That guy is Leon Hart. That's Jim Martin. That's Jack Christensen. Yale Lary was from Texas A&M, and he was taken just before me in the draft. So I knew Yale because I played against him in college.
As you know, Yale Lary was too small to play in the pros. I mean, there were a lot of guys that were too small to play in the pros that did. Hard to measure the size of a heart, didn't there? That had a lot to do with it. The athletic heart took you a long way.
In 1979, it took Yale Lary to the Hall of Fame, where he was inducted with Ron Mix, Dick Butkus, and Johnny Unitas. He belonged in their company.
Football has been such a major part of my life that being here today is literally a dream come true. The fond memories I have of Detroit, I'll remember forever, and the great coaches, Buddy Parker, our head coach, who won the World Championship in 1952 and 1953, and also George Wilson in 1957. Also, I'd like to thank the National Football League, the National Football League Hall of Fame, and the many, many people that are responsible for this great event today. This is a moment that I will cherish for the rest of my life. Thank you very much.
Paul Hornung called him the best punter ever.
That's pretty high praise from a pretty good player. Well, we're going to move on now to our actors with a brief report on an actor that may not be familiar to most people, but he lived an amazing life. Curt Lowens, who died recently at the age of 91. Curt Lowens was a nice Jewish boy who was born at the German-Polish border before World War II, and NBC did a nice brief feature on him in their Life Well Lived segment.
This week we highlight another life well lived. Actor Curt Lowens was 12 years old in 1938 and then named Curt Lowenstein when the Nazis carried out their Kristallnacht attacks across Germany. His synagogue was burned to the ground. The Lowenstein family fled to Holland, but were caught and sent to the concentration camp at Westerbork. After Curt was released from the camp, he joined the Dutch resistance, where he helped to save nearly 150 Jews, most of them children, by hiding them with families in the countryside. Curt later rescued 2 downed American pilots with the Army Air Corps, hiding them from the Nazis too. He says he learned his first Broadway songs from those GIs. Lowenstein later received a commendation from General Dwight Eisenhower. After the war, Lowenstein came to America with the dream of becoming an actor. He shortened his name to Curt Lowens and ironically broke into the business playing an SS guard in the original Broadway production of Stalag 17. Lowens went on to play Nazis in films like Alfred Hitchcock's Torn Curtain and on TV's Hogan's Heroes. Curt Lowens, Holocaust survivor, war hero, and actor, died this week in Beverly Hills, California.
Only one slight correction there. In the movie Torn Curtain, he did not play a Nazi agent. He played an East German secret police agent. He was a communist, not a Nazi in that one. But I think you get the picture. Well, we're going to move on to our second actor tonight, our feature, Powers Boothe, who died recently at the age of 68. Powers Boothe is our second Texan tonight. I forgot to mention Yale Lary was from Fort Worth. Powers Boothe was a Texas boy from Snyder. That's only about 3 hours away due east on I-20. Powers Boothe was one of the best actors of our generation, real favorite of mine, and in fact he gave one of the greatest television performances ever in 1980 when he starred as Jim Jones in the story of the Guyana Massacre. Here's USA Today on Powers Boothe.
Well, sadly, we are saying bye to Tombstone actor Powers Boothe, who passed away Sunday. Boothe made his national breakthrough in 1980, starring as the true-life cult leader in the CBS docudrama Guyana Tragedy, the story of Jim Jones, landing him an Emmy for his portrayal. And he also made the 2 words, well, bye, iconic as Curly Bill in 1993's Tombstone.
Well, bye.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Powers Boothe as Jim Jones. In real life, Jim Jones was this charismatic guy from Indiana who moved out to San Francisco, started this socialist cult there. He was actually pretty popular with the local politicians, including Governor Jerry Brown for a while and Willie Brown. But things started to fall apart in California, so he took his congregation, became the Reverend, and moved out to Guyana next to Venezuela in South America. Things were turning out weird there in his socialist commune as well, and American families started questioning things when they didn't hear from their relatives. California sent a congressman out there who was assassinated, and right after that, Jim Jones exhorted all his followers to drink grape Kool-Aid, which was laced with cyanide, and 920 people died in one of the largest massacres in American history. It's probably where the phrase drinking the Kool-Aid came from, by the way. Powers Boothe studied Jim Jones for a made-for-TV movie 2 years later, including studying the tapes that Jim Jones made, and did an absolutely spot-on portrayal. As I said, it is one of the most legendary performances in American television, and Powers Boothe won the Emmy for it.
Are we all here? How very much I've tried to give you a good life. It's been said by the greatest prophets since time immemorial, no man takes my life from me. I lay my life down. We can't live in peace, then let's die in peace. Now what's going to happen here in a matter of a few minutes is that one of our people is going to shoot the people who left. I didn't tell him to do it. I didn't plan, but I know it's going to happen. That's just as plain as I can tell you. And I've never lied to you. I never have lied to you. So my opinion is, you be kind to children. You be kind to seniors. And you take the potion like they did in ancient Greece and step over quietly. Because we're not committing suicide. It's a revolutionary act. People in San Francisco will not be idle over this. They will not take our deaths in vain, you know. Sooner or later, that hope runs out because everybody dies. I never saw anybody yet who didn't die. I'd like to choose my own kind of death for a change because I am tired of being tormented to hell. That's what I am tired of. Paul says, there's a man born out of due season. Well, I have been born out of due season, just like we all are, and the best testimony we can make is to leave it.
All over. What a legacy, what a legacy. The congressman is dead. Please get us some medication. It's simple, it's just simple. Just please get it before it's too late. I'm telling you, you have got
got to move. You got to move. You got to move. Mother, please. If you knew what was ahead of you, if you knew what was ahead of you, you'd be glad to be stepping over it.
I want to tell you a little bit about my introduction of Powers Boothe was around that time in the movie Southern Comfort, directed by Walter Hill, about some National Guardsmen trapped in the swamps of Louisiana. And he steals the performance from Keith Carradine, Fred Ward, and Peter Coyote, some pretty good actors. Here's a brief scene with Keith Carradine at a Cajun party where Powers Boothe realizes all is not as it seems.
Look at those two guys. What you got? Getting out the boat. Yeah. Think they're the ones that have been after us? Hell, I don't know. I never seen them. I think it's them. Don't go getting paranoid on me. I got reason to be paranoid, and so do you. They gotta kill us. We're the only witnesses. Don't sweat it. They can't pull anything here in front of everybody.
Yeah, that's what he thinks. Here's Powers Boothe talking about filming in the Louisiana Bayou.
It was not only intense for us as actors, it was intense for everyone, crew, everybody. We were all up to our butts in water. Behind the scenes and on camera weren't that much different. It wasn't like, oh, I go to my comfortable trailer or anything. You just didn't. Most of the time we sat on stumps of wood and all got webbed feet. Just to walk through it, let's just run through it, which we did a lot, was tough. But like I said, the Dolly guys, they were over there, they'd built these tracks and they were running through the same stuff.
It is a great underrated movie, and I'm not the only one who thought so. Here's Bill Goodekoonts from the Arizona Republic on Powers Boothe. Every now and then you get to meet someone whose work you really admire and tell them about it, and it's satisfying. And today's sad. Powers Boothe died Sunday at 68. He was a terrific actor whose material rarely rose to his talents. He was outstanding as Jim Jones in Guyana Tragedy, The Story of Jim Jones, a 1980 television movie for which he won an Emmy, controversially crossing the picket line during an actor's strike to collect his award. He got a well-earned acclaim for his work in Deadwood as Cy Tolliver, and let's face it, everyone was great in that show. Most recently, he appeared in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. But it was Southern Comfort, Walter Hill's 1981 film about a bunch of guys on a National Guard exercise who get lost in the swamps of Louisiana and are menaced by Cajuns, a clear parallel to Vietnam that won me over. He plays Hardin, the cynical conscience of the film. With his heavy eyes and slow drawl, he's perfect. And I got to tell him, when I worked as a TV critic, I attended a Fox network party and Boothe had just signed on to 24. He played the vice president who eventually becomes president. Boothe was kind of off by himself, nursing ice water, so I wandered over. I told him how much I loved Southern Comfort and how great I thought he was in it. He seemed both genuinely surprised and honestly appreciative. Thanks, he said. That was my first motion picture. In reality, it wasn't. He appeared in small roles in both Cruising and The Goodbye Girl before that. But there was something about his reaction, and more specifically his use of the words motion picture, that was charming. Boothe never hit it as big as he should have. He never got quite the right role or quite the right project. But he was always around, always doing good work. Soldiering on, an outstanding character actor doing his best to elevate whatever he appeared in. What more can you ask from an actor? Not much. Do yourself a favor. Try to find a copy of Southern Comfort. It's not available for streaming. And watch it. You won't be disappointed, either in the film or in Boothe's performance. Rest in peace. Well, I'm going to close on that note. I want to thank my producer and IT genius, Sid Tepps. We're going to close tonight with Michel Parks, who died at the age of 77. The day he died, I saw him on an episode of Alfred Hitchcock where he was tremendous, but he's best known for his 1969-1970 TV series Then Came Bronson. Plays a motorcycle dude in a sort of a combination of a Route 66, The Fugitive, and Easy Rider, which was contemporaneous type of show. And he also recorded a top 20 hit called Lonesome Highway that was played in the show. He should have been bigger in movies. I don't know why he wasn't. But in tribute, we're going to close with part of his catchphrase from Then Came Bronson and then a little bit of The Long Lonesome Highway.
Then came Bronson back to Tennessee. And you know, it looks like he fell in love with the place. Well, everybody sure fell in love with him. Michel Parks.
Going down that long, lonesome highway, bound for the mountains and the plains. Sure ain't nothing here gonna tie me, and I got some friends I'd like to see again. Going down that long, lonesome highway, gonna live life my way. Taking a trip? What's that? Taking a trip. Yeah. Where to?
Well, I don't know. We're going to end up, I guess.
Well, I wish I was you.
Really? Well, hang in there.